Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And I know why you're all here. Last Friday I did the video about the email that Roger Livermore sent to Humza Yousaf back on the 4th of February. And in there he called for Bain, Lord Advocate Bain, to lose her job because of repeated lying that she knew about to Parliament. And, of course, she didn't. She didn't resign. Now, under that law, which says she must, if she doesn't, Humza Yousaf is obliged by the law to fire her. He didn't. And under that same law, if he doesn't fire her, he himself must resign. These aren't guidance. This isn't optional. It is law. And yet there they are, the pair of them, still in position. One hasn't fired the other. Neither has resigned. And so Roger has taken it upon himself to write a second email. Now, at the time of recording this, I'm recording on this video is actually being recorded on the Saturday, but it'll be going out lunchtime on the Sunday. And because at the time it goes out, it will mean that it's going out at the same time as those emails are being sent. So as you're watching this, assuming you're watching it almost immediately, you'll know that that email has literally just landed in the inbox of all these people. And we'll look through the video at the list of the people it's going to. He's widened his claims because he's not just after Dorothy Bain anymore. He's after bigger fish. And when you see the claims he's making within this, it will be jaw-dropping. It is an astonishing set of claims. And of course, Roger is not just some bloke off the internet. He was a Crown prosecutor. He knows whereof he speaks. And he is backing up everything he says with the relevant laws that they're breaking. Let's go in and have a look. And all I'll just say is, ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your hats. Here goes. So, here we go. This is again from Roger. And it is a stunning. I'm just gonna go straight through on a cold read. And then once I've done the cold read, I will come up and we will do a little conclusion after it. But quite literally, I've read through this and boy. Dear Mr. Yousaf, number one, lying to Parliament. As you are aware, your Minister, Lord Advocate Bain, committed a major lie in Holyrood on the 16th of January 2024 in relation to the Post Office prosecutions in Scotland. They stated that they were carried out by the independent cops when, of course, it was never independent. It is wholly the Scottish Government, a political body, the antithesis of independent. In this lie, Bain, about her own ministerial-led department, they were knowingly misleading Parliament. A month later, and contrary to the ministerial code, Bain has still not resigned. They are rendering the ministerial code of compliance as being optional and so worthless. You should have ensured Bain's cessation of office weeks ago. See our letter to you below, and he's referring to that email of the 4th of February. By your inaction, you are perpetuating the Lord Advocate's lie that the government's cops is independent. And for your misleading of Parliament by the ministerial code, you are required to resign with immediate effect. And secondly, likewise, for your failure and refusal to uphold the ministerial code. So he's saying there that he must go because he's broken the code, and he must go because he's failing to uphold the code. So two separate offences. Continuing. The conduct of you and Lord Advocate Bain will severely damage the reputation of Holyrood. It cannot function with two senior ministers lying on a matter fundamental to the functioning of government in Scotland. That is that prosecutions are taken by the Scottish Government rather than the legally required, properly independent prosecution service, free from government interference and certainly not run by it. There could hardly be a bigger lie perpetrated by Scottish ministers. Note, by overarching law, the governments and government officers are prohibited from running the systems of prosecutions and the investigations of deaths. For example, under ECHR Articles 1, 2 and 6, Human Rights Act 1988, Articles 2 and 6, and the Constitutional Reform Act 2005. There is nemo judex in causa sui, where the Scottish law officers unlawfully place their government outside the constraints of law. In Scotland, there is also the Judiciary and Courts Scotland Act 2008, which is constantly breached by the law officers and the First Minister. The position of the Scottish Government controlling judicial processes means that Scotland does not have a lawful, independent judiciary. We note that the Secretary of State, Alistair Jack, has reminded you of the problem of the Lord Advocate, as well as your SNP MP, Joanna Cherry, with her 10-minute bill at Westminster, and a link there to the 10-minute bill. I will, of course, any links put and pin down in the comment underneath. So they will be there if you want to go and investigate them yourselves. Continuing. The Lord Advocate adds to their lie. She says, as protected within the Scotland Act, the law officers operate entirely independently of any other person as they undertake their prosecutorial and investigation of deaths functions. What the Lord Advocate is referring to is section 48.5 of the Scotland Act 1998, which says, any decision of the Lord Advocate in his capacity as head of the systems of criminal prosecution and investigation of deaths in Scotland shall continue to be taken by him independently of any other person. This is not a defence for Bain. Instead, it is constant, multiple offences. Bain, in making decisions on the basis of information and advice from the Scottish Government's ministerial-led government department COPS. This is wholly the government and staffed by government officers. The decisions of the Lord Advocate are not being made independently of any other person. Bain must be prosecuted for constantly breaching 48.5 of the Scotland Act 1998. So, just to come out of this, he's not just asking for her head and her resignation. He's now saying she must be prosecuted for constantly breaking the law. Cracking. Number 2, the rule of law. Rule of law lie is number 2 is the heading. In their statements to Holyrood of the 16th of January 2024, Lord Advocate Bain stated their commitment to the rule of law. However, in their acts, they demonstrate their trashing of the rule of law. Bain could not be further from the truth. This is hubris. And again, a link. And again, link below. Continue. Successive Scottish law officers, going back to the drafting of the Devolution of Scotland Act 1998, are the cause of the absence of rule of law in Scotland. Despite the repeated warnings from ASAP NHS, Lord Advocate Bain is responsible for the most serious breaches of the European Commission on Human Rights, Articles 1, 2 and 6, the Human Rights Act 1998, Articles 2 and 6, the Constitutional Reform Act 2005, the Judiciary and Courts Scotland Act 2008, the Police and Fire Reform Scotland Act 2012, and sections 48.5 and 57 of the Scotland Act 1998. They even sought to grant themselves an unlawful exemption from the European Convention on Human Rights. As both the Scottish Government's Minister for Prosecutions and always the Scottish Government, they unlawfully put the latter beyond the constraints of the law. They constantly judge their government and do nothing on its crimes, breaking the fundamental principle of nemo judex in causa sui. They would place Scotland around the bottom of the World Justice Project Rule of Law Index, European Division. There has not been one of the 17,000 COVID-19 deaths in Scotland independently and lawfully handled. The law officers have shielded their government on their role and their offences involved in the deaths. Scottish law officers constantly demonstrate that they are not competent in the law. They are the most prolific offenders in Scottish and UK legal history. An irony is that when I, and he's talking to himself here, was a lawful prosecutor on behalf of the Crown, whereas Lord Advocate Bain and Solicitor General Charteris, being always the Scottish Government, are not. I mean, this guy has walked the walk as well as talking the talk. He was the Crown prosecutor, so he knows. Anyway, moving on. 3. Scotland's disappeared. Now this is where you're going to have your mind blown. Scotland's disappeared. It is now 4 years since the first COVID-19 death in Scotland. Since then, there have been 17,000. Yet, they have all vanished into the Scottish Government's COPS black hole. Not one has been independently and lawfully handled, let alone investigated. None have seen the light of day. No HM coroners, no inquests, no HSE investigations, not even one, albeit illegal, fatal accident inquiry. The illegal cover-up has been by Lord Advocates Wolfe and Bain, Chief Constables Livingston and Farrell, Chief Executive Officer of the Health and Safety Executive Sarah Alban, Health Ministers Freeman, Youssef, Matheson and now Gray, Chief Justice Lord Carloway and his judges, and First Ministers Sturgeon and Youssef. As ASAP NHS has long pointed out, there are major similarities of the Scottish justice system with that of extremist regimes such as 1930s Germany. And just to step out of this for a moment, it's something we've all been saying for a long time, that they are very, very similar to what was going on in Germany, and it is effectively they were running death camps. We've made that claim before, and that's before even seeing this. Stepping back in. He says, this is not civilization, and the levee will break. There are many more deaths that your government and law officers have been making disappear. Your government's ministerial heads of investigation of deaths, Lord Advocate Bain and the Solicitor General, have been doing the same on the circa 100 baby deaths a year in Scottish maternity services. They and other named parties above have conspired to make vanish the approximately 2,000 reasonably preventable premature deaths a year in Scotland, Scottish healthcare and related social care. This looks like being the biggest scandal in at least the last 100 years in Scotland. It is difficult or impossible to think of a bigger one. A government covering up thousands of deaths of its citizens, and the death being due to its disregard of the UK law-wide on public safety. Your government's failure and refusal to implement and comply with UK-wide law on public safety, he quotes HSWA, MHSWR, COSHH, PPE regs, etc., presents an extreme risk to the people of Scotland. With your control of prosecutions and the investigation of deaths, it means that the main check on your unlawful abuse of power is wholly absent. For your support of Lord Advocate Bain's lying, you're failing to uphold the ministerial code, you're failing to comply with the ministerial code, your cover-up of thousands of COVID deaths, of the baby deaths, and of the thousands more patient safety deaths, and of those in social care, and your own role in the breaches of the above legislation. It is impossible for you to stay in office. You and your government present an immediate and grave ongoing risk to public safety and to justice. Yours sincerely, Roger Livermore. And then HM Principal Investigator with 8 titles and Crown Prosecutor. Now, I did say would say who amongst others it's being sent to, and he's doing a lot of BCCs as well. But on the CCs, Alistair Jack, Simon Case, Alistair Jack, Scottish Minister, Simon Case, Head of the Civil Service, Keir Starmer, Ed Davey, Douglas Ross, Anna Sarwar, Alex Cole-Hamilton, and the Right Honourable Alison Johnson, MSP, Presiding Officer at Holyrood. So all those people have been copied in. He's also, and I happen to know that he's CC'd into a lot of other people. Blind BCC'd into a lot of other people who I'm not going to name because he's BCC'd them, and that's only fair to do that. Happy for these to be known. But he has also, other than the individuals that he's BCC'd, he has contacted all the major news organisations. That is stunning. Now I'm going to come up at this point and we'll just draw to a conclusion. I told you it was jaw-dropping. What Roger is saying is effectively Scotland does not have any legally recognised justice system. No prosecutions can occur because it's always the government prosecuting, which is against the ECHR, which transcends and supersedes all British law. We're still subjected to it even though we've left the EU. We're still signed up to the ECHR. And so they are in breach of ECHR rules, which involves independent prosecutions. But it's also independent on the investigation of deaths. The claims Bain are making are not only lies, and for that alone she needs to lose her job, but every prosecution she takes is the breach of international law, but also the breach of UK-wide law, and also the breach of Scottish law. And it isn't just a little bit here and a little bit there. It's every single prosecution. Every single one. And they've known about it for quite some time. They've deliberately done nothing. They're acting as though they don't need to. They're saying it's guidance, it's optional, it is no such thing. The government of Scotland is little more than a dictatorship run by extremists that's putting itself above the law and which has subsumed the judiciary into the executive. It needs to be disbanded immediately, and everyone who's held the law office job needs to be arrested, charged, tried, convicted and imprisoned. Every minister also likewise needs to be arrested, charged, tried, convicted and imprisoned, because they have all been guilty of breaching those same laws. And boy, was there a lot of laws. They've covered up and they've hidden thousands upon thousands of deaths. It's much like the disappeared in Chile in the 70s and 80s. It's much like the gulags of Soviet Russia, where you don't even speak to the people. They're cut out of photographs. They're disappeared. And that's what's been happening to people in Scotland, because the Scottish government has put itself beyond the reach of law. Thank you, Roger. Let us all be aware of what is going on, of what these criminals, which they undoubtedly are now, are doing, and let us make sure that they are accountable. And the thing is now, because they've broken EHCR law, they're not able to be prosecuted in Scotland. They could be prosecuted by the British legal system. They can be prosecuted by the European legal system. They could go to The Hague over this. And I don't think even the SNP's influence reaches as far as that. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and share the hell out of this video.